whatever little thing would happen around the house, just putting your socks on the ground, I would be instantly feel like it's an act of not respecting me, and I would get so angry. I was like 0 to 100 in no time. This is not how I'm going to show up for my kids. This is not how their childhood is going to be. Like, this is enough is enough.
Hi, and welcome to the Zen Supermom podcast. And even though you hear the word mom in the podcast name, this episode specifically is actually going to be for men, for dads. Anybody out there who you feel like you're struggling with controlling your emotions before they blow up at your kids, and you do not want to be that angry dad who's like too much in their face, and you also don't want to be the guy who's dissociating, who's running away because you don't want to yell, but you're feeling those big emotions that you don't know what to do about. So you withdraw and you become like a robot, like a machine who doesn't feel. So what do you do then? What is possible for you without feeling like you're broken and you need to go to a mental hospital or anything? No, you don't. But there are things you need to understand. Where is your uncontrollable anger coming from? How come your logical brain kicks in only afterwards and not before your hijack happens? And what results are possible in a relatively short time? Hear it directly from one of the guys who actually did it. To respect his privacy, we are taking out his name, we are blurring his face, because you can imagine, for personal, like family reasons, but also for professional reasons, you wouldn't want everybody to know, right? Probably what you're doing at home behind the closed doors. So we are going to respect his privacy. But you will hear it in his voice, and I really want you to pay close attention to his story so that you understand what is possible once you decide that you want to have like a better future and better relationship for you and your kids. So without any further ado, come and meet A with me. Hi there, all Zen Supermom podcast viewers and listeners. This one is going to be for dads, and I'm going to need to make sure that I don't pronounce his full name, but I'm going to say hi, A.
Hello.
Thank you so much for your courage and your bravery, actually, to show up on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And maybe this is where I would like to start, because we were just chatting about it briefly, because before I turned on the record button, I can only imagine how much courage that takes to come and talk about things that are not perfect. I would have not done it 5-6 years ago. So what is it that made you want to come and talk?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind is what I wrote to you when you asked me to come on. I think it's the right thing to do, to share with other guys, and I would regret it forever if I didn't dare, if I chickened out and I didn't like join and do my like little part to help uh, talk about this and like normalize it and put it out there. I would be forever like regretting if I didn't do it. That's like that the thing that I thought about the most is like I will regret more not doing it than doing it.
Excellent. Well, then let's talk about it. Let's share it,
Yeah.
what the story is. So you're a dad of how many kids, how old, and like whatever level of detail or privacy you want to share, but just so that people get an idea who you are and what was the
Yes.
challenge.
Yeah. I have two kids, and they are 3 years apart, and they're yeah right now they're 3 and 6, and yeah. Uh, the reason where I was when I reached out, I guess they were 2 and 5 back then. I I had just been on parental leave, and I think yeah, all the time from when they started being old enough to sort of show their own will and have their own way. I noticed I want to say that, yeah, most of all, I would have just pangs, triggers from out of nowhere, just getting extremely angry and upset, raising my voice, acting in ways I would regret later, not having any patience. And I want to sort of put this into some sort of context to sort of explain who I am. I see myself as a very calm, very sort of introverted, analytical, independent person. And so this came sort of out of like left field. It was like, came out of nowhere. I had no idea where it came from at all. It's not, felt like not a part of my identity at all to be having these emotions just erupt. And I think initially I put it a lot on them, on my kids, for not being obedient or not listening the first time. I think maybe I had no idea whatsoever what to expect from young kids, even though I'm so into the thing I wanted to, that comes to mind, put it in with like one phrase, is I like to lead an examined life. This is sort of a thing that's out there. I like to look at all the things with my wife, who is amazing and loves to go into like the depths of everything, all aspects. I'm so into like back in the day, it was called life hacks, and then it became lifestyle design, and it's all these um, all these aspects of life, including parenting, including how we interact as a couple, how we communicate, all those things. I'm so into it, and still, this just, like I said, blindsided me. Just came out of left field, and I couldn't explain it, and for sure I had a hard time accepting it, or like coming to terms that this was something that was sort of part of me.
Yeah.
So that's where I was at, I guess.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for being so open and sharing. Do you want to describe some like specific example? What's
Yes.
the biggest, like one of the biggest triggers when it was a shock?
Yeah, sure. I think the big ones for me, one thing that I would do is or still do, wind myself up to feel stressed, like time pressure in situations where there might not even be any real time pressure, but going to kindergarten to pick up the kids, for example. And my oldest would have this period where she didn't want to leave. She just wanted to stay in kindergarten and keep playing, which makes sense, I guess. But it would make me so stressed out that what are the other parents gonna think? What are the staff going to think? What's wrong with that family because their kid doesn't want to go home, and what's going on? I would wind up this entire story totally like out of nowhere, and I would get so stressed that, okay, now we've been here for a full, I don't know, 2 minutes. We have to leave now, and I would get also feel like I, of course, don't want to sort of make a scene in kindergarten, and that was just so difficult for me. Another thing that comes to mind is just the little things. I don't, maybe whatever little thing would happen around the house, just putting your socks on the ground. I would be like, can you please pick up your socks? And then if they wouldn't do it, I would be instantly feel like it's an act of not respecting me. And I would get so angry out of like 0 to 100 in no time. And I'm sorry, I don't have like a specific one, because this could be anything. This could be the smallest thing, like for no reason, really. I would get so mad. And I would, raise my voice or all kinds of, non-constructive behavior.
Yeah, thank you. So what I heard there that you're so aware of now what was going on. There was the fear of judgment, especially in like public setting. Like what are other people going to think about me and my girls and like our family? And then there was this like the respect. It was that need for control and for being respected. Yeah. So what is it that made you want to then go and reach out for help? Because I can only imagine, and if there are any guys listening, there's so much stigma about getting like going into therapy or like even really admit there's a challenge. Stop blaming it on the kids and realize there's something in me that needs to get help. That is actually the most difficult step that I see in all of our clients, but especially men, because part of how you are raised as guys, and I don't, apologies for generalizations, but this is what I typically see with the people I work with. For men, it's always much more difficult to go and reach out for help, because that's part of also admitting like I'm a failure because I cannot figure this out by myself. Like it means I'm stupid or I'm not good enough because I should have had this figured out. So can you, to whatever degree you're comfortable sharing, like your thinking and process behind it? Because I see this is actually the breakthrough already right there. People who decide,
Yes.
like, hey, I'm going to send that email, or hey, I'm going to contact somebody.
So initially, like I said, I have an amazing wife, and we love to talk about all aspects of life. And at some point, or I guess she pointed out, or we concluded that like this is not acceptable. Like this is not how our life is going to be. This isn't like how me for myself. I decided this is not how I'm going to show up for my kids. This is not how their childhood is going to be. Like this is enough, sort of. And and then that was step number one. And then from there, okay, what are we going to do about it? And we thought of different like interventions, and I did uh, CBT therapy with some online app, and we did some couples counseling, and then around this time she also found you, Alena, on Instagram, and she sent it on to me. And I started listening to the podcast, and I went to one of your online seminars, and sort of started having you in my ear and in the back of my mind. So started thinking about like what your message and what you're all about. And yeah, like I said, I felt like I had it like dialed all aspects of life, and it was really hard for me to accept being like, as we've come to find out, much of a perfectionist, much of a sort of controller of both myself and trying to control others as well. This was really hard to accept. Like I did not want to I did not want to not do this myself. I thought I can like figure this out for sure, as I have so many other things. And like I said, I think of myself as calm, and I've been very independent. For sure, when it comes to emotions, like you said, as a man, like this isn't like it was not on my radar to do something like this. At the same time, like I've been listening to, for example, there's this therapist called Esther Perel, who puts out her couples counseling sessions online, and I've listened to so many like inspirational people through the years. Uh, I've always had the idea that like talking to like a therapist, like that's not something that maybe I wanted to do because I needed help, but something I wanted to do to like get myself even to the next level, to sort of expand even more, and to be like, no, I feel like I actually might need some help here. That was not something I was open to, sort of mentally at
No,
all.
because you're not broken. You don't need fixing, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that was really hard to accept. But then there was this major sort of little tragedy in my life, and I sort of started reconsidering things, and I was like, okay, enough is enough. I'm just going to book this call with Alena and talk this through, and we'll see where we end up. Yeah, it took like a major event in my life for it to finally happen, but I'm glad it did. I'm glad I did.
Yeah, amazing. And I bet your family is super excited you did. Yeah, but we will get there. I don't want to kind of like re-traumatize you by rehashing the old past or anything, but to the level that you're comfortable with, I would like to touch at least briefly on the roots of it, because this was exactly the thing that you were mentioning. You were such a calm, like even steady person before everything was happening with your kids. So you were mentioning this came totally out of left field, the fact that you were like getting this anger reaction from 0 to 100 for nothing, for like minor reasons. So what was it? Where was the root coming for you? Like, what did you find out throughout the process that we took you through? Why, how come it was such a blind spot? Where was it coming from you?
I'm still working on the details and the specifics, but I'm pretty sure I know sort of the lineage where this comes from. And I can maybe we can say it like this: I have a couple of my grandparents who went through war, and so I can only imagine what what that does to a person, and then what they must have sort of inadvertently passed on to my mother. And I have perfectly fine relationship with my mother. Like I said, I don't know specifics, but I know she has her ways, she's a very, how should we say, determined, and I can imagine as a child that she was also fairly controlling, and she would have things her way. So I see for sure where my tendencies are coming from. Uh, that's something I'm still sort of trying to hone in on and trying to see or trying to bring back exact memories and so on. But I see sort of the source for sure.
Yeah. And just for anybody listening or watching, this is not to throw our parents under the bus. Each of them, they did the best they could with what they knew. All of our parents always, most of the time, had the best intentions for us. But what you're talking about here is indeed the generational transfer. The fact that despite their best intentions, if our parents didn't give us the blueprint on how to react in a grounded, calm way in stressful situations, that's what we learned from them, like the good and the bad. And so if you're saying your mom react to stress through controlling, perfecting, I would assume, because then that's exactly what showed up in you. So that would be only logical. Whatever is in you, you will be either the direct, and this is, by the way, for anybody who's listening, there are two extremes usually happening with unhealthy reactions to stress, overwhelm, anxiety. We either copy exactly the same patterns of our parents, or then we swing it to the other side, the other extreme. So with aggressive, narcissistic parents, and I'm not saying that's what your mom was, just like doing general thing. For those of us who were raised by narcissistic, aggressive parents, either we start showing the same tendency, or I also see it for a lot of women, they flip to the other side. They become the people-pleasing, self-sacrificing martyr just because they don't want to be like their parents. So they start becoming too nice, But having no boundaries, having no healthy coping mechanisms, then they snap indeed into that yelling. And like only 2% of the time, 98% of the time, they are the nice, too nice mom with no boundary, and they snap it in like rah, monster out of nowhere. So what you're describing, if you grew up with controlling mom, it's completely normal that either you would start having the same tendencies, or you might swing to the other side and you would start avoiding and disappearing. So either you're too intense and in your kid's face like the police woman or policeman, or you flip it because you know there's a part of you who knows how damaging that was for you growing up. So you say, no, I'm not going to be like my parents. And then you flip to the opposite and you're avoiding. You feel the anger, you feel the disrespect. Oh my goodness, my kids are disrespecting me, but I don't want to be controlling like my mom was. So I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to pretend there's no problem. I'm going to disappear. There are no bad emotions. And let me just pretend like everything is fine. Let's sweep this under the carpet and let's continue. So that's like the two extremes that are usually going on. Yeah.
Yes.
Very well. This is, and again, we are not throwing our parents under the bus because none of us also wants to be thrown under the bus when our kids are adults. Like, I had a bad childhood because of you, mom or dad. You are not perfect. Like, of course we are not. That's why we are here, all of us, right? That's why you are listening to the podcast. But there comes the point when we need to take the responsibility for cleaning it up, and this is what you did. So, do you want to talk about the process? How was that for you? Because this is not we are not doing a CBT. We are not just
Exactly.
talking about the behavior. So how did that go for you?
It's been great. It was a lot of quick progress, like right in the beginning. As you sort of, I was looking through the program, learning like all the different steps on all the different concepts, and I felt like I was like applying things, and it was working, and I feel like those first like few weeks, few months, it was quick and steady progress. I was like getting places, and at the same time, I also feel like looking back, I was being the good student, and I was like progressing, and I was like doing the motions, and then I came out sort of on the other side, and like, okay, but this isn't done now. Like I did all the things, but I don't feel like it's done. They're still like, what's going on, Alena? I'm not fixed. It's not ready. I'm still angry at times, and that's probably when I started realizing how much I have these tendencies to avoid things. It's been sort of dawning on me very slowly over the last few months, but that would be sort of the stages I experienced. I think first things are new and fun and exciting, and I was learning a lot and changing a lot, and then I'm realizing I also have to sort of put in the real work, long term, and sort of make it, like we talk about, make it part of my identity and actually who I am, not just tick the boxes and do the sort of pass the exams, so to say.
Yeah. And this is very common, huh? There's nothing wrong with your reaction. This is what most of the people go through. And especially because they learn that unlike classic talk therapy or any of these other techniques that take years to feel any results, and often people don't get long-term results because they don't get any tools. They just get relief directly from the sessions. We do the opposite. We give you the tools as well. We help you heal and give you the tools. And so everybody can hear me talk about, I keep talking about it all the time, 3 months in most of the cases, unless you have complex PTSD really, and then shock trauma somewhere in your past, we can get this done quickly. And that's what everybody expects, but then it's normal to plateau. And this is also coming from the judge and like the judging, criticizing, comparing voices we still have, like from where we grew up, that are putting the like the milestone in your future, saying like, this is the moment when I will be healed and I can just go back and relax and stop doing everything I'm doing, because that time I will be healed. As if
And also,
it was yeah, tell me.
being a perfectionist, that's the worst. And I'm not perfectly done, healed, complete, perfect, and Zen. There's still lots to be done here. Sort of that thing too, and not realizing perhaps how far I've already come, how much has already changed, or not not giving
Not
back.
allowing yourself to celebrate.
Yeah,
Because the
exactly.
fact that you are not yelling daily, you are not losing your patience so much. And this is exactly like, where do you put, like, who's evaluating? Who's doing that score test in your brain? And what standard are you holding yourself up to? Because indeed, there is no end point actually. This is a continuous journey, also from somebody who's been doing it for 5-6 years now. I will never be done. But it's not my perfectionist driving me, beating myself up. Oh, you felt stressed this morning, so you're not good enough. And how dare you talking to others about what they should do if you are not perfect? Like, no. This is about uncovering deeper and deeper layers, because exactly as you're saying, maybe like that controller, you were able to work through it and you got results and you were calmer with your kids. But then the next layer to uncover was the avoider, who was just avoiding and feeling the emotions, because then the perfectionist would kick in like, what? You're feeling stressed? How dare you? You should be healed by now. So let's avoid. There is no stress reaction, right? So totally normal. And thank you so much for bringing that up and for talking about it so openly, despite the avoiding like tendency. Well done. That's even a bigger win. Yeah. So can you share some specific example now how it is different? So how does your like school pickup time, how does that work now?
Yes, so this is still a thing. My daughter still doesn't want to go home from kindergarten sometimes. That happens. And sometimes I'm still stressed by it, but I've also come to realize, one, we are only going home to make dinner. There is no stress. And also, just like it's normal for kids not to come running and go home immediately from kindergarten. There's no, like, I tell myself, there is no real stress here. There is, like, I try to remind myself, I still feel it sometimes in other situations, of course, too, but I've sort of come to take things less seriously, I think. That's one. For sure, it's gotten better. In general, I feel like I've managed to sort of rewire some of these triggers, and in general, I had this one big like revelation. That's not a specific. Well, it was a specific morning at the breakfast table. I I was, for whatever reason, starting to wind myself up over, I don't know, some sandwiches on the floor or whatever. And I just realized, like, in a moment, that this entire experience of starting to get wound up and triggered is, all of this is optional. All of this is like an emotion I'm experiencing. Just as in, like, in meditation, when you catch a thought and you look at it and you sort of discard it and you go back to meditating, I was able to sort of put it all in a box and sort of, okay, this is one way of reacting, and then what could be another way? And that feeling, I call it getting underneath the anger. That was just biggest, like the biggest win for me, for sure. And I try to get there as often as I can. It's not every day, but for sure, I'm experiencing more and more that I've rewired some of the triggers to. I'm still starting to get angry, and then I realize, well, maybe that's not like the most effective way to deal with this situation. And I managed to react in, I don't know, a reasonable way, or without anger.
You have choices, and that's it. And this is
Yes.
indeed the biggest win, because that's what everybody wants. Like anybody who will be listening or watching, this is what I always hear at the beginning. When I ask people, they tell me about what's the challenge, what is the problem. And then when I ask them about the goal, like, what do you want to be able to do? And this is what everybody says. Like, I want to be able to prevent it. I want to be able to stop it before it happens. Because so often they realize it only afterwards. So after they yelled, after they snapped, after they grabbed and shook their kids, and then they feel so guilty afterwards. And only then the logical brain kicks in again and said, oh my goodness, this was so stupid. I shouldn't have done it. I should have done it better because of da 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 da. They all wish they had that realization and that level of self-control to stop themselves before it escalated. And this is exactly what you're describing now, that you are able to do now. Perfectly imperfect, and that's my motto that I keep repeating to with everybody all the time, to overcome that perfectionist in it, indeed. Perfectly imperfect, but the fact that you can be doing it. And the more you practice, because it is a process, the more you keep being aware, the more you practice, the easier it will be, depending, of course, on the life situation, how heavy it is and how stressed out you are also in other areas of your life. But the fact that you can do it, that's everything. That's all you need. That's all you need to keep going by yourself from now on for forever. But this is amazing. Congratulations. Like, this is the dream. Like,
Yeah, it is. It's what I was, of course, what I was hoping for, what I was working towards, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's
yeah,
yeah.
perfect. What would be your message to the younger you who was like looking for help, or who just met me and was thinking like, oh my goodness, whatever, what am I doing here? What would be your message for him back then in the past, the guy who was still struggling and who had no idea?
Well, there's two things I've thought of, and one is, well, don't wait for a tragedy to happen. There's no like no need to wait. Just sort of just do it. That's the one thing that I could have started sooner, or I wish I would have started sooner. And one thing that I also thought about is, because, like I mentioned, I went to some therapy and some counseling, and it didn't feel right to go in sort of into the medical system. I don't feel like I have like a diagnosis in any way.
Yeah.
And what I like about your program is it's coaching, and that's like mentally that's a big deal for previous me, at least. That, like, if I don't think it's weird at all if you're a business leader and you do business like leadership coaching, or if you're an athlete and you have a coach, that's totally normal. And so, yeah, that's one of the things that I wish I would have sort of thought of sooner too. That, like, if it's like, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure I would have gotten there by myself eventually in the end, just probably not before my kids moved out of the house or whatever. So, like, getting help from a coach, saving myself from learning it like the long hard way. I think that's well, I would have like sort of given myself that insight sooner too.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for mentioning that, because there's like a thin line to walk. Because indeed, I'm not like a licensed therapist or anything. We are using trauma healing techniques, but through coaching process. And then especially specifically joined with the mental fitness coaching. So there's a thin line. For some people, that's a turn on, because just like you said, they don't want to be labeled as like mentally ill with some diagnoses or yeah, like medical papers on it. And then there are also people who have gone through a lot of therapy, and so then they discard it as like, what, it's trauma informed coaching, so it's not like a real therapy, so it means it's not solid. So there's like a thin line. And that's why I love doing these podcast episodes, because I love sharing the real stories of real people. because for me, it's the result. If somebody comes and tells me, oh, you do it in 3 months, like, so it means it's not real. Like, I want to have 100 sessions. I don't want to have just a few. I'm like, okay, go. But then, yeah, how old are your kids going to be by the time you finish your 100 sessions? Wouldn't it be better actually if you can have the same or even better result in just a handful? Does longer mean better? Not necessarily. That's why I love talking about how quickly we can have actually realistically what kind of results we can expect. And that's why I'm so happy you were sharing your specific examples, like with the school pickup and stuff and socks on the floor, because that's indeed like people care about real results. Thank you for that. Is there anything that you had in mind that you felt like compelled you'd like to share today that I didn't ask you about? Like, this would be your space to come up like and share anything, because you were feeling, and especially when we were opening this call, you were sharing it, how strongly you felt that you didn't want to chicken out of it. That there was a message that wanted to come out. So take a moment just to think if there was anything else.
I would just say, like, to, yeah, what I was saying for myself, to make a decision how you want it in your life. Like, do you accept the way things are, or like, do you want to make a change? And then basically do anything. I mean, it's your podcast and it's like for your program, but do anything. Like, do the therapy, do something. If you don't accept the state of where you are, for for your kids, for your grandkids, for your family, for yourself, just like do something. And don't, like, if you feel it's not working, whatever you're doing, do something different.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your open heart and sharing. I really appreciate you for like be willing to speak up so that you can help other people, especially men. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I hope anybody who was listening or watching at whatever platform, do reach out to us and let us know what resonated with you. And because if there's only like one person listening somewhere and feeling like, oh my goodness, I don't know why I clicked on this podcast episode today, but like this is exactly what I needed to hear without even knowing it, then let us know. This is why we are doing it. This is why this podcast, it keeps on growing and keeps on being for free, so that anybody has access to it. So if you also feel like there is someone who needs to hear this, feel free to share this episode with them. That's why we did it. And that's why A had so much courage to go and share. So thank you so much. And take care, everybody. See you next time in the Zen Supermom podcast.